Shamrocks and shillelaghs to everybody on this March edition of 3030. Now, while St. Patrick's Day may have happened on Sunday, as everyone knows, I am from Long Island, and it is a month-long holiday. As the parades continue, I am going to my fourth parade this Sunday. So hope you're all having as good a time as I am in this month. So lots to cover today, even though we don't have as many topics as we typically do. So let's talk about what has been happening over the last 30 days. Of course, right now, the big thing that everyone is talking about is the March 2024 core and spam updates. I typically wait until after updates finish, as everybody knows, to give my analysis. But since the core update is taking longer than usual, I wanted to show everyone what I'm seeing in Conductor's data so far. So that's going to be the bulk of the presentation today and the conversation. But we're also going to cover that Google Perspective has changed names to forums. Google and Reddit's expanded partnership. I've gotten a lot of questions about that, so we'll talk briefly about that. And then, of course, we'll round it out with our monthly segment of This Month in SGE. But let's get into it because we only have 30 minutes. Number one, everybody, the big one. March 2024 core and spam updates are here. They have been rolling out over the last several weeks. The spam update actually finished this morning. After about 11 days, I think they said it was 11 days or 10 days and 21 hours, something like that. But ultimately, these are the first two named algorithm updates of the year. Both updates rolled out on March 5th. And again, the difference between these two, outside of what their purposes are, of course, is the length of time that they are taking to roll out. So one of the big things to recognize here is that the core update is set to take over a month. So right now we are March 21st, so we're about kind of 2.5 weeks into it. But from that perspective, everybody recognized that this is a long update because it's a big one. It is a big one. Google has actually said that it is a sizable one and that they are updating multiple systems. So that is why the core algorithm is going to take a month plus to roll out. Now, the spam update also rolled out at the same time, but that has finished as of today. That finished this morning. So that took about 2 weeks to roll out. And again, that is those are the two major differences between the timelines of those, but each were strong in their own regard. One thing to note is that the helpful content update, right, or updates, that we get notifications about, the notification of those will stop moving forward. So Google is rolling helpful content update signals into core algorithm updates. So we can all rest assured that when a core algorithm update rolls out, that Google will be enhancing and updating the helpful content update signals. So keep that in mind. So what am I seeing so far? Everybody, these updates are big and they are focused on getting rid of as much spammy content, and garbage content as possible. It is a huge broadsword, kind of offensive against spammy sites, and also sites that have, paid attention and did not do well, in the September or the previous helpful content updates seem to be recovering here. And again, that's probably a mixture of, spam in the index going away. But also from that perspective, it is we're starting to see some recoveries there from folks that listen. Again, this is a big one. So Elizabeth Tucker, who is the director of product for search at Google, said that we expect that this combination of this update and previous efforts will collectively reduce low quality, unoriginal content results by 40%. 40%. That is insane. So I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but I certainly noticed less spam in results, and I'm starting to see the right types of sites rank. But again, this is a big one. And from the spam perspective, they enhanced one policy and introduced two new ones, which I will go into specifically each. But one is the scaled content abuse, which again is an enhancement to a previous update. And then they introduced the site reputation abuse, which actually targets parasite SEO, and the expired domain abuse. So from that perspective, that's what's going on. As you can see from the graph, there are a lot of bumps in the road since it launched, which is, right at that Google mark on March 5th. You can see we've already had 3 major tremors, but at the end of the day, this has been a big one for a lot of folks. And there's been a lot of interesting movement and a lot of sites getting absolutely torched. But let's get into the individual aspects of the spam update, right? And what those 3 things are, which I think are the ones that are most relevant to, talk about. So the scaled content abuse policy. This is actually an update to the old spammy automatically generated content policy, which again is all about, any method of producing content at scale, whether that be using generative AI or really, 100 content writers or, spun content. This has been something that we've been combating for years, but this is an enhanced, again, kind of broadsword, swipe at that. An example of this would be, again, using generative AI tools or similar tools to generate many pages without adding value for users. So again, that is a renaming of one, but really scaled content, Google is really dropping the hammer on it here. Site reputation abuse. So we have talked about parasite SEO here many times, especially over the last couple of months, but this is a new policy that targets that. And for anyone who doesn't know, or just as a reminder, what parasite SEO is, that's basically when someone piggybacks off of a domain. So let's say a domain like, and I'm not saying Forbes.com does this, but I'm saying, let's say like a authoritative domain Forbes rents out space in a subfolder on their site to someone who wants to, sell you Viagra or something like that. So what these affiliates do, they come in, they build a bunch of pages about nothing that has to do with anything that Forbes wants to talk about, but they rank well because Forbes.com has such a high authority. This has been rampant over the last few years, and especially it's become more and more, it's been thrust into the spotlight, let's say, as this spam issue has kind of plagued Google. So again, that is something that Google is also cutting down on. Now, the third one is the expired domain abuse. This is something that people have been doing forever, which is when someone gives up a domain with a site that used to be authoritative or had authority, has authority and has links pointing back to it. People would pick up those expired domains and they would use that to sell junk or just create content to sell junk that has no value to users. This is something that's been happening forever. But that's also something that Google is kind of dropping the hammer on. So looking at some questions here, expired domain spam, are they done de-indexing those sites? No, that's going to be an ongoing thing, but certainly a lot of them have been de-indexed so far. I'll get to that in a second. Next one, disavowed domains that were previously only deranked to the bottom are now gone for good. So yes, absolutely. It's this is a good thing, everybody. This is going to help the quality of results get better. But ultimately help us as we are, no longer combating. The other thing that happened around March 6th or 7th is that Google absolutely smacked, spam websites in the face with manual actions. They sent out millions of manual actions from reports I've read. Some people said it was up to 2% of sites in the index, which is insane because there's millions of sites. Not sure that's true. But again, a lot of these sites are gone and they are out of the index. So this is something that Google took a broadsword approach to and took a huge swipe at people that are trying to manipulate and use AI and other, scaled content methodologies to rank better and to, just to make money in a shady way. So from that perspective, Google is coming after this. This is everything we've been talking about for the last 6 months that we've been talking about this stuff. This is the update that's addressing all of it, everybody. So this is the time to stop buying links, stop generating garbage content using ChatGPT and copying and pasting it onto your site. Not saying anyone here does that, but this is the update. This is this generation's panda and penguin. To be honest with you, this is going to, this is going to be, this is a war that Google's declaring on folks doing this, and it's only going to get, these signals are only going to intensify. Now, looking into some verticals, I figured it would be a good idea to look at some sites that I am familiar with, but also sites that that I've just noticed some trends in. And I'm going to talk about retail, healthcare, and finance, and just some noticeable things that I was seeing. So, here's a site that we that saw a 2% increase in top 10 visibility over the last 30 days. And as you can see, this is a site that's had trouble for well over a year. They were buying links. And then ultimately they stopped and they invested heavily in their content strategy. And they started to see, they started to see an uptick in the November updates, which is interesting because a lot of sites had trouble during the November updates. But a lot of retail sites, had a lot of trouble because that's where a lot of the spam started to show up. But, through that, they've continued to grow, and it appears that with this update, they're still on the upward path. Here's another site that's seen a 5% increase in top 10 visibility and a 7% increase in overall visibility. So as you can see here, this is a site that didn't do well in last summer's updates, like really from June all the way through the August core update and then the helpful content update. It started to come back up again a little bit. But again, this is another site that was buying links and used a scaled content methodology. They cut all of that out. They started, writing their own content, and and as you can see, the path to healing has begun. Here's another site also another site that had trouble really all throughout, right up until the November updates. They were also using scaled content methodologies, but just in the last 30 days, they've seen a 5% increase in top 10 visibility and a 7% increase in overall visibility, which is really good here, and again, like a lot of these sites that we're looking at, I do know the folks that run them, and they were doing some things that weren't so great, and they stopped, they learned their lesson, and now they're doing things the right way, and they're starting to get rewarded for that. And that's, if that's the way that you're doing it, you're doing it the right way. And one last one in retail, this is a site that has been really up and down over the last year, but just in the last 30 days, look at that chunky gain, 3% increase in top 10 visibility, 12% increase in overall visibility. So largely what I'm seeing in retail is that, overall visibility is up 5%. And then page one visibility is up 2% when you look across the board. And that's just 5 examples of, like 100 sites I looked at. But the general trend in retail is positive. And I think a lot of that has to do with the reduction in spam, because that was what was really killing a lot of retailers. But also, like when you look through these sites, you can see that people have been investing in their content strategy, which is starting to work out favorably for them. Let's go into healthcare, which, if everyone remembers, last time we spoke, I went through an analysis I did for healthcare, and it was a mixed bag, up until this update. But when you look over the last 30 days, here's a site that's seen a 5% increase in top 10 visibility and a 5% increase in overall visibility. And again, this is a site that was, really started to take off at the helpful content update. They were a hospital system, that worked really hard, in getting authorship with physicians and doctors to sign off on their content. That has worked really well for them. And as you can see, this is no small feat, going from just under 3 million keywords to now over 4 million keywords. So that 5%, that's a big 5% on both sides. But again, I think I attribute most of their growth to their work on their authorship. Here's another site that saw a 2% increase in their top 10 visibility. Again, this site got smacked last year, right around February, and they started to see signs of life in the helpful content update. October updates, not so kind to them, but then after November, they really started to climb, and this update seems to be doing well for them as well. Again, a lot of this was around authorship, and they were also buying links, which is why they got killed back in February. Here's a site not doing so great. A little bit of a roller coaster for them. So they've seen about 1% decrease in top 10 visibility and a 2% decrease in overall visibility. Again, this site has not changed their tactics. I don't know the folks that run this site, but what you can see here is that, my opinion is that they are clearly doing a link build. They're clearly building links artificially, and they don't have a lot of authorship. So I'm anticipating this site I actually tagged and added to my group. I'm actually, calling this site as coming up as a loser here, because they're not spending enough time, tying things back to the experts within their organization. And here's another one. Again, a steady increase from the September, helpful content update, 1% increase on both sides just over the last 30 days. But as you can see, a lot of what they've been doing has been content related. And one last one, you can see here, another site that's done really well since the September helpful content update, 1% increase. You guys are probably hearing a theme that I'm going with here that I'm going to reveal in a second, and a 2% increase in overall visibility. So when you look at that, and another site just over the last 30 days, 4% increase in top 10 visibility and a 6% increase in overall visibility. So again, this is a site that didn't do so well from the helpful content update. Been a little bit of a roller coaster, but it looks like March is going to be a good month for them. But when you take all that into account for healthcare, it's about 2%, positive trend overall when you look across all the sites. But the interesting thing that I've gathered from all this is that this core update is really enhancing the helpful content update signals. That is the main thing that I think is driving all of the change and all of the growth here. So it's something to consider, and especially now that the helpful content update signals are going to be part of the core updates moving forward. That is something to keep in mind. That this is something that is going to continue. They are going to continue to push the helpful content signals, and I think that's what's driving a lot. It's driving most of this change, which is really interesting. So moving on to one more, which is finance, just because some interesting findings here. Again, seeing 1% increase in top 10 visibility, 1% increase in overall visibility for this site that got absolutely smacked by the September helpful content update. But again, they turned things around and they started really investing in authorship and content, and they're starting to see things, go in the right direction here. Here's another site that got smacked by the September helpful content update. So far, seeing a 3% increase in top 10 and 7% increase in overall. Again, same story. They were buying links. They got caught. They cut that out, but also they didn't really invest in content at all up until now, and they're starting to see that trend in the right direction. Here's another site: 2% increase in top 10 visibility and 4% increase in overall visibility. They kind of didn't really see anything. They saw a downward turn in November, but then really starting in December, they've been hitting these chunky gains every month. And again, they have been investing really heavily in their content strategy. Here's another site with 1% decrease in top 10 visibility and a 2% increase in overall visibility. Again, they did not do well after the September helpful content update. And since they have started to invest here, they're doing a lot better. And again, it really comes down to content. Another site that got killed in the September update is starting to see signs of life. They really just started to put content onto this site. But they've seen a 1% increase across the board, where they've really just been stagnant the last few months. So when you look at finance, overall visibility is raising 3%, and then page one visibility is up about 1% across the board. So really what I'm seeing is what a lot of the industry is seeing. And as everyone knows, I follow Glenn Gabe. He's seeing the same things and saying the same things, which is, feels good that, I'm not seeing something different than what a lot of the others are. But when you see this, he talks a lot about the core updates or folks that have been were negatively impacted by the helpful content updates so far, seeing a surge right now, which is, I'm seeing signs of that in conductors data as well. But also there are folks that are doing, folks that didn't listen and didn't, change their ways, for lack of better terms, have done really poorly. And again, these are not sites that were, impacted by manual actions or anything like that. This is just what the data, this is just sites that are, either we're seeing surges or we're seeing everything go the other way. But I also want to caution everyone and remind everybody that this update is not over. And Google Search Liaison actually came out and did the same thing. If everyone, for folks that have been joining the show for a while, know that, a trend that's been happening over the last, I would say 18 months, is that as Google turns the dial up and turns the dial down, as we get the tremors from them, we've seen that right at the end, like the last day of these major core updates, they push some kind of go live button and a huge surge goes out, and that's usually the last tremor, which is usually the most powerful, which sometimes sends everything back to where it was, or makes things surge or dip even further, or completely reverses fortunes on that last day. So again, that's typically why I don't do analyses until these things are over. But this one's going to be so long that I wanted to show everyone what was going on. But right now, it looks like spam is decreasing, which is really good. It seems that sites that were hit by the helpful content updates of the past and listened and did something about it are starting to see a little bit of a resurgence, which is really good, especially in retail. But right now, overall, folks that are doing it right are seeing mostly a positive trend. But again, this update is still rolling out. So everyone has to remember that this is not done yet. And the next week or 10 days could change the entire outlook of this. But right now, that's what we're seeing, and that's what I'm seeing. A couple of questions here. Will this update wreak havoc for companies who create content in bulk? I don't want to mention company name, but I mean the company who takes a keyword and then generates a ton of articles for their clients or to post. It really depends on how you do it, right? Like Google actually released a statement saying there's nothing wrong with creating content in bulk as long as it's valuable. So to me, as long as you're not just putting a bunch of crap in the chat GPT and then putting whatever it poops out right onto your website, you're probably going to be fine as long as it's valuable. And again, if you remember what we talked about a couple episodes ago, that you're specific, you're factual, you have your authorship in place. I don't think it matters if you put 10 articles up or 1,000 articles up, as long as they're all valuable. That's really all Google cares about. And again, I think there's a good comment here. AI can assist. It's a matter of if the finished work provides value to users. That is the perfect statement. That is the perfect statement. As long as it provides value to users, there's nothing wrong with starting content using AI. AI is a fantastic productivity tool. But again, it's all about how you use it, right? So moving on from here. How are we doing on time? Got about 8 minutes, a couple of slides left. So Google Perspectives, something that I have talked about quite a bit here on the program, has changed names. So right now, it has been called Perspectives, but this has gone live where they have changed the name to Forums. So why the change? What Google said was, there'll be evolving perspectives filtered to forums, basically because it's more intuitive for users who are looking for that type of content. And frequently seeking out that type of, those types of closed environments, which that makes sense. When you went into Perspectives, it was a lot from Quora, it was a lot from Reddit, it was a lot from YouTube as well, though, because there was there was TikTok and Instagram in there as well. So that's the next question of this too, right? It's like, didn't Perspective show more content than that? Yes, it did. And what they said about that was that, other types of content like short videos, user-generated contents that was previously shown in Perspectives, it'll continue to be accessible for relevant queries, as carousels, clusters, and traditional web page listings and search results. So that's an interesting statement, because now you have to wonder if they have this forums thing and they're going to break out some of the content that was in Perspectives, which was really aimed, in my opinion, at solving the Instagram and TikTok search issue. Does that mean that we're going to see less Reddit posts and less Quora posts as regular results? I don't know. I mean, when I Google stuff, I still see them all the time, not necessarily in the forums filter, but it'll be interesting to see if we see that number trickle down over time, right? And if we're going to see as much Reddit, and as much Quora in the regular results. I mean, we'll probably see as more Reddit or as much Reddit, because in case anyone didn't see, Google and Reddit, just inked an expanded partnership, which is very interesting and provides benefits really for both sides. And from that perspective, I think that, will you start, does this impact the last conversation before we fully move on to this? I would think it does, that Google does have this direct partnership with them. They have direct access to their data API, and I would think that they would still show Reddit results when applicable, maybe not as much, because it's been a little bit overkill. Like, as I said, for every 10 queries you do, maybe, Reddit shows up probably 5 or 6 times, as the second or third, result. Quora shows up quite a bit too. But now that, they have their specific forums filter, I wonder if we're going to see it as much. Question here: carousels, clusters, and traditional web pages. What are clusters in this context? I think when they talk about that, it's just, I think it's like rich results and things like that. I think clusters, you see, what's a good example? People also bought or popular products, or, more from Quora, those types of rich results. I believe that's what they're talking about when they talk about clusters, like clustering, different results together. Like, if you ever see a Reddit result, typically it gives you the result, but then it gives you the threads underneath it. There's several threads or several answers to your question, even though it's part of the same thread. I believe that's what they mean by clusters when they speak here. But it's something to think about, and something for us all to monitor. But what, so this expanded partnership, what does this mean, right? What does this mean for all this? for Reddit, like how does it benefit, right? This is worth $60 million a year. So how does Reddit benefit? According to the announcement, it's a new cloud partnership that includes Reddit to integrate new AI powered capabilities using Vertex AI, and they can use that to enhance search and other capabilities. All well and good. What does this actually mean? Reddit is getting paid. They're getting a lot of money to get this content over to Google. And yes, they will have all the benefits of enhancing their search functionalities and all that stuff. And that's all well and good. But Reddit is getting a lot of money for this from Google, and good for them. So then it comes down to how does Google benefit? Well, according to the announcement, is access to basically has access to Reddit's data API, and they can use it to enhance many things. They get structured information for fresher information, enhanced signals, and then the big thing here is to train on. Reddit content to display, train on, and otherwise use it in the most accurate and relevant ways. I mean, everyone, why does Google want to pay Reddit $60 million? Because they want to use its content to train Gemini. That is what this is about. This is about using the millions of people on Reddit and all the conversations, the way that people talk, the way that people interact, curse at each other on Reddit, have real conversations on Reddit. This is all to train Gemini so that it becomes more conversational, number one, but also, that it becomes, it also can understand when someone asks a question in a certain way, what's the best type of result? It's going to help it train that way. So that is, and that is what is, that's what this is really about. And a great comment here. Reddit content is so helpful because of the upvotes for training. I mean, that's how these training models work, right? It's like, yes, this was good. No, this was bad. I don't know if anyone's, seen the OpenAI video on YouTube, which is really fascinating with the robot that a gentleman is talking to and asking it to put dishes, in a dish tray, to hand him an apple. It's very fascinating. Google it. It's really, really cool. As OpenAI, moves towards discovering AGI or, general, artificial general intelligence. But that stuff is real and it's happening. And these models, Reddit is actually a fantastic way to train these models. So something to think about, right? But from that perspective, it's a very cool video. You should go check it out if you're into AI beyond search. But it's this is why Google is paying $60 million a year. They're paying for that. They're paying to train their model. Last but certainly not least, this month in SGE, really, the only things that have happened, there's been feedback pop-ups that have been popping up in SGE, which is fine. That's all well and good. But the one thing that I have noticed, or the big thing that I have noticed, is that the box does not generate nearly as much anymore. So a few months ago, if you did 10 searches, the box would auto-generate probably 8 out of 10 times, and maybe twice you would get this generate box. I would say that has flipped, and now for every 10 searches that I do, it only generates once or twice, and you are being prompted to hit generate. So that is the biggest thing that I have noticed, or at least the test group that I have been in. And again, SGE is not launching anytime soon, as far as we know. They're keeping it in his labs. They are still very bullish on it. But from that perspective, it's something to take note of, that this may be what we see, is that you have to prompt it to generate, and that it does not generate itself nearly as often. But that is something to think about. But as we reach time here, everybody, we talked a lot about algorithms today, but the only algorithm that matters is the heart, mind, and soul of your customer. If you create great content that they like and love, they will come back and be customers for life. Everybody, we do office hours Tuesday after live shows. We're doing it this Tuesday, March 26th at 11 a.m. Eastern. Come, throw questions at me. We have a good time. Me and Madison chill out, hang out with customers, answer questions. We do our best. And with that, everybody, thank you so much for your time and attention, and 30 minutes of your valuable time. I say this every time, I know, but this is my favorite part of my job, and I would not be able to do it without all of you. Thank you all so much. I wish you safe searching, and we will see you next month. Take care, everyone.